Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today on Queensley Appetit, I'm showing you how to make the dessert of all desserts, red velvet Oreo cheesecake. This is like one of the most evilly delicious dessert creations I've ever come up with, and I have absolutely no regrets. As you can see, on the outside we have red velvet cake crumbs and Oreos. But inside, there's a layer of red velvet cake and the best Oreo cheesecake you'll ever have. So excited to share this one with you guys today, so let's get baking. We're gonna start by making the red velvet cake. Begin by adding your dry ingredients to a small bowl. Some all-purpose flour, a bit of unsweetened cocoa powder, and salt. We're gonna whisk this all together until it's all nice and combined. You can add a bit more cocoa if you want to, but I wanted to keep the chocolate on the milder side. But if you prefer more cocoa, go ahead and add a tablespoon or two and it'll be just fine. In a separate bowl, go ahead and add some softened unsalted butter along with some granulated sugar. We're gonna beat this with a hand mixer until it's combined. This may take around 5 minutes because you want the butter and sugar to be pale and fluffy. Just like so. Scrape down the sides of the bowl, then add some sour cream, vegetable oil, and vanilla. Mix that up until smooth, then add the eggs one at a time. Now let's put the red in red velvet cake. Use a good brand of food coloring. I used AmeriColor Super Red Gel Food Coloring, but you can use liquid coloring, either one is fine. Just use a coloring that'll give you a nice bright red color. Once all of the color has been mixed in thoroughly, we're going to alternate between adding a third of those dry ingredients, then half of the buttermilk. Alternating between the wet and dry ingredients like this keeps our batter nice and smooth throughout the mixing process and prevents us from overbeating. Last but not least, you're going to combine an equal amount of baking soda and vinegar. Once it starts to bubble up, add it to your batter, then use a rubber spatula to stir it in. Go ahead and divide that batter in half. One half is going to go into our 9-inch springform pan. Spread it into an even layer and then bake it in a preheated 350-degree oven for about 18 to 20 minutes, or until a toothpick inserted into the center of the cake comes out clean. The other half of the batter is going to go into a regular 8-inch cake pan. You don't really need to grease or line the pan because we're going to be breaking this cake up into crumbs anyway. Go ahead and bake this for the same amount of time, then let both cakes cool completely on a wire rack while we prepare our cheesecake. First thing you're going to want to do is separate 10 Oreos and scrape out the cream filling. Put the cream filling in one bowl and all of the empty Oreo wafers in a separate bowl. Go ahead and add the Oreo wafers to a Ziploc bag and smash them up a bit with a rolling pin or a pot, whatever you have. You can also use a food processor if you want finer crumbs, but I like having chunks of Oreo in my cheesecake. Now let's finally make the cheesecake. Start by beating the cream cheese until it's fluffy and creamy and smooth. Add all of that Oreo cream filling to the bowl and mix it into the cream cheese. Next, add some granulated sugar and cornstarch and mix that all in. Then add the sour cream and vanilla. Now we're gonna add 3 eggs and 1 egg yolk, one at a time. And finally, when that's all mixed in, we're gonna add our Oreos. And don't worry, this isn't all the Oreos we're adding. I went ahead and chopped up an extra 15 Oreos to add to our cheesecake. Then we're gonna take the Oreo cheesecake and pour it on top of our red velvet cake in our springform pan. This cheesecake needs to bake in a water bath, but don't worry, I found the perfect trick to prevent our water bath from leaking into our pan. Get a large rectangle pan, then a round 10 or 11 inch pan or pot, and put your cheesecake inside. Boil a few cups of water and pour it into the larger pan. Slowly and carefully transfer the cheesecake to the oven. Bake at 300 degrees for about an hour and a half. Let the cheesecake chill in the refrigerator overnight. Then on day 2, we can continue by making our thick and silky chocolate ganache topping. Grab a small heat-safe bowl and add your chocolate chips and heavy cream. Then pop that into the microwave in 30-second intervals. After the first 30 seconds, stir it around a bit, and as you can see, those chocolate chips are starting to melt. Put it in for another 30 seconds and then slowly start to stir it around. This may take a while, don't put it back in the microwave, just keep on stirring. And as you can see, the chocolate and the cream will begin to combine together to make a beautiful silky ganache. Now go get your cheesecake out of the refrigerator, remove the ring carefully, and then pour the ganache into the center. Spread it out a little bit while keeping it centered. Keep adding more ganache to the center of the cheesecake while spreading it around a little bit. Return the cheesecake to the fridge and let the ganache set for about an hour. In the meantime, I took that second red velvet cake, I cut it up and put it into a bowl, then used my fingers to break it up into crumbs. Just pick up the chunks and rub them between your fingers like so. Set that aside, and once the ganache is chilled, we can decorate. Spread some cream cheese frosting around the sides of the cheesecake. I just used a cheap can of store-bought frosting because there's really no point in putting in extra work to make our own homemade cream cheese frosting, since the main purpose of this frosting is to hold our crumbs. Speaking of which, we're gonna grab that bowl of crumbs and press handfuls around the cheesecake. This part can get pretty messy, so I recommend keeping a large pan or a dish towel, something underneath your cheesecake to catch all of the stray crumbs. Don't worry if it's not perfect, you can go around and fill in the empty spots later. Once the sides are coated, add more crumbs to the empty edges on top of the cheesecake. Finish the cheesecake off with some more chopped Oreos and you're done. Look at that. The red velvet cake bottom stays nice and moist. The cheesecake is so luscious and creamy. And just look how much Oreo's in there. That thick ganache topping just ties these flavors in perfectly. And the crumbly red velvet cake coating is just an extra treat to enjoy. Happy baking, and thanks for watching. Bye guys.